Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Total Truth Show. And here on the Total Truth Show, we want to help you break free from the lies and propaganda of the mainstream media, all the disinformation and misinformation. We want to help you blast through all of that. And my name is Ken Kleinberg, coming to you all the way from the USA, San Diego, California.
And I'm Aldwyn Altuney, known as the Media Queen from the Gold Coast in Australia.
There is a great awakening happening in the world right now, and you're going to want to come along for the ride.
A lot of lies are coming to the surface. There's a lot of awakening happening. And as this awakening is happening, people realize they've been deceived for years. They've been lied to for years around all sorts of things. A lot of people have been blind to what has been going on in the world, and now they're starting to see. They're starting to see things in a different light.
Through our show, we want to raise global consciousness to quantum critical mass. And we don't want you just to accept the things that we're saying. That goes for our guests as well. We want you to do the research for yourself. Get out there and start questioning things. Start looking things up. Do the research. We want to pave the way for a new awakened world. And we want you to come along for the ride. So with that, let's get started, you guys. Let's dive into today's episode. Once again, welcome.
Hello, and welcome to Total Truth Show episode 122. Today we are going to be talking about the truth about immigration. Oh, this is a hot topic. Can't wait to hear from our amazing guest today. And we do have my co-host Ken Kleinberg here as well. How are you going today, Ken?
Doing well. How about you?
Fantastic. Thank you. It's very hot here in Australia right now. It is Saturday around lunchtime. And of course, where you are, it's probably freezing, right?
Yeah, it was definitely a cold day today. So, it's kind of weird that with here, here's winter, and with you, it's summer. It's crazy.
Yes. So, and so everyone's at the beach right now, and with you, they're probably all at the snow and skiing, etc. So wherever you are in the world, welcome aboard. Welcome to all our viewers on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. We do invite you to comment and to share your thoughts as well with the show today. Now, before we chat with our special guest, a little bit about her. We've got Davida Thyman with us. She is the Executive Director of the Kingdom Ambassador Network and a leading voice in faith-based conservative immigration reform. She brings over 20 years of federal and US diplomatic service experience, informing her disciplined national interest approach to policy awareness and international engagement. Davida is the architect of the Lighthouse Immigration Strategy, a results-driven framework emphasizing border accountability, lawful immigration pathways, and family preservation without rewarding lawlessness. Mm-hmm. She's also a key advocate for the Dual Hope Act, advancing reforms that restore order, uphold moral responsibility, and protect American sovereignty. Welcome to the show, Davida.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Glad to be here. It's a good time to have this conversation. It's always a good time to have this conversation, in my opinion. But thank you.
Yes, thank you, Davida. And I know it's a hot topic in Australia because our Prime Minister with Labor here, we have Labor and Liberal, our two major parties here, and the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, plans to bring 1.8 million migrants to Australia over the next 5 years. And a lot of people are up in arms about that for many reasons, such as they feel these people are taking their jobs. We already have a situation where we don't have enough homes for a lot of people in Australia. So now, we've got a homelessness problem. And some people are saying that the reason that the Prime Minister is bringing so many migrants into Australia is because he's buying votes. Now, that's a very interesting thought, buying votes. Okay. So, so Davida, what's going on in America? You've just had something pretty tragic happen. Can you share what's going on over there?
Yes, absolutely. So on Wednesday, Renee, this woman in Minnesota, she had an encounter with immigration customs enforcement, and the result was her life. And what we're noticing is that there's a lot of disorder behind what is happening at this moment. So first of all, I want to take a breath. I want to take a moment, because this is a very partisan type issue. You know, people have very solid beliefs, set aside beliefs. And one of the main reasons I'm really excited to be on this particular show is because we get to talk about the truth. We get to talk about the truth, right? And so with my history, I have been with State Department, I've been domestic and abroad, and really was able to experience immigration on both sides of the window, right? So on one side of the window as a government official, right? And you are reviewing fraud prevention type concerns or looking at visa cases, you get to see that perspective. And then on the other side, as coming from an immigrant family, you get to also see, you know, how much love you have for the United States, because this is your home. This is the place that you get to experience that American dream. Now, from what I've experienced myself, the American dream is the ability to be able to, it's the Constitution for the United States, so that you're able to go ahead and experience freedom, but the way that United States offers it, right? So I know that you're from Australia, so this is a little bit different, but excuse me. But yeah, so in order to be able to experience this American dream in the US, we need to be able to understand, okay, a couple of guidelines, right? So do we have a crisis when it comes to immigration? Clearly we do. Yes, there has been fraud. Yes, there has been people that have come to the United States and they do not currently have status. There were originally 14 million people in the United States, 14 to 15 million people in the United States that did not have status, okay? And does it have an impact on our economy? Absolutely. It definitely has the ability to have the impact on economy, but we also have to understand, at least for the United States, that we are a nation of immigrants, right? So how do we find that duality behind being a nation of immigrants and respecting the fact that our country was founded on, you know, in God we trust, right? So the United States, our founding fathers had God as the forefront. So why are we not looking to the word? So that's one of the first things I wanted to do right now. In Psalms 94, all right, the Lord had actually guided me here. Psalms 94, verse 14, it says, "For the Lord will not reject his people. He will not forsake his inheritance. Judgment will be founded on righteousness, and the upright in heart will follow it." All right, so let's sketch back a little bit to verse 14, where it says, "They pour out arrogant words, and all the evildoers and full boasting. They crush your people, Lord. They oppress your inheritance. They slay the widow and the foreigner and murder the fatherless. They say, the Lord does not see, the God of Jacob does not take notice." All right, so I love this new dedication that the United States is actually taking, where we are understanding that we are a people of order, and I'm representing the Kingdom Ambassador Network. I love God. I'm glad that we're here, and I'm glad that we are going down this path, but there is a way to do it. And if we can't be one-sided, as in we're going to take this claim because of God, and we're not going to accept the other portion of it. Christians, we are covenantal people, right? So there is a part that God does, there's a part that we do, right? So according to this, God is actually saying that he is claiming as an inheritance the widow, the foreigner, and the fatherless, right? Why are these people set aside right now? They are set aside because they don't have a covering. In the United States, a lot of people come to the US because they are seeking those freedoms. They are seeking the ability to work, the ability to have a family, the ability to choose what it is that they're able to choose within the guidelines of our laws. Now, then that brings us to the next section. Now, God is also a God of order. So we do need to ensure that there's structure to the way that we are processing immigration. So one of the things that I had noticed while I was abroad is that when people don't have answers, they make them up. When I return to the US, people don't have answers, they make them up. And so if the people are not receiving the information that they need in order to ensure that they're able to accomplish the goal that they want to do in the US, right? So let's just say they want to come to the United States to work, but they don't understand the pathway to do that. Well, they're going to say, hey, I want to go to Disney World. They're going to come to the United States. They may not leave. And then now you have an issue where there is someone that does not have status in the US. Is that the right way to do it? No, absolutely not. But were they given another option? It depends on their situation. Now, if you are fleeing because of, for your family, right? If you are fleeing something that's going on in your home country, for instance, the country of my origin, Burma, right? So there is a lot of political issues. My family being associated with the United States had actually put us in a category where we were dangerous to that country. Again, with our affiliation with the United States, we were able to enter the United States. We had special immigrant visas, right? And we were able to go ahead and immigrate legally, of course. And my family has historically served the US government. All right, we have served the United States government and actually represented the US government in other countries, as part of the diplomatic corps. And so when we talk about patriotism, I don't know a stronger patriot other than my father, who's recently passed away. And watching their lives and the heritage that we were able to maintain because of our culture, right? The things that didn't go away simply because we relocated. But then when you get to see and evaluate the people around you and how immigration in the United States gets to touch every single person. I try to run away from immigration multiple times. I resigned from the federal government. But whenever I walked into a room, I noticed that was the best way that I was able to serve people, by providing them immigration support, helping them understand that pathway, helping them to understand if you want to work, then these are the categories that you could qualify under. So what is it that you do? How is it that you can contribute to the United States' economy? Because if you're working in the United States, if you have a business, then you have the ability, if you have a business, to have employees. So now you are helping reduce joblessness in the United States, right? You're able to unemployment. You're able to help that statistic. Excuse me. So yes, absolutely. There is a way to do things. And I noticed that part was missing because it didn't seem like there was a lot of communication. There wasn't a lot of truth. The information is coming from websites, and I'll give credit to the State Department. They did try to change their language so it's more acceptable, right? But in this time, there's also a lot of predators out there that are just trying to, make a buck, right? And so, whether or not you have attorneys that are charging immigrants, migrants anywhere from $5,000, $7,000, $15,000 per person, depending on what it is that they're applying for. Like, some people would not be able to say, okay, well, I don't mind, putting down $7,000 for my work visa. A lot of people would not have the ability to do that. So, and if they're unable to do that, and they don't know what categories they're supposed to get into, what options do we leave them? And that's how we get into the lighthouse immigration strategy, because the goal is to be able to cut that communication deficit down, right? We want to ensure that the people on one side of the window have access to the information that they need in order for them to be lawful in the United States. Now, what I've seen, so that was something that I noticed while I was working within the diplomatic corps. All right. One thing I've noticed outside of the diplomatic corps is that, man, I lost my train of thought. So,
it happens.
Yeah, that's all good. I'm sure it'll come back. I'll just mention while you think about that. In Australia at the moment, the Department of Home Affairs estimates 70,000 people live unlawfully. And many of them actually arrive on student visas or visitor visas. Also had a lot of boat people come illegally as well from, a lot of Asian countries, particularly nearby, and other countries. And I know this, some of them are escaping wars and really bad situations as well. And I think, it's good to be compassionate and, to consider people's situations. And at the same time, I think, when people do come into another country, I think they need to find ways to integrate into that culture rather than, being fanatic about bringing, their particular culture in and segregating, hanging out with just people from their country rather than, their original country, rather than assimilating into the new culture. So I think, I think there's a lot to this. It's quite a complicated web, this, topic of immigration.
Absolutely. And you actually hit the nail on the head right there. That integration piece, that's what I noticed the most. But not so much, because the United States has been known to be a melting pot. And it's very interesting. One thing I love the most about the US is that we do have diversity, lots of diversity. And I would even go to say that it's unmatched worldwide, the level of diversity in the United States. And so with that being said, what does that integration process actually look like? So with the Lighthouse Immigration Strategy, that integration process is a focus on the economics, right? Because immigration should, even according to the word, should be able to be an economic asset to whatever country they are moving to. Right? So you're bringing your skill, you're bringing your wisdom, you're bringing your family, you're bringing your love for your new country if you are immigrating to that new country, to that new place of residence. And migrating is hard. There's a lot of people that will come to the United States, and they were so focused on planning to enter the US that they didn't really think it through of what happens next, right? And so that integration process should look like, how can I be economically stable in the United States? Am I going to be looking for a job? Do I already have a job? Do I have a skill that I'm able to create a business for? And if I'm able to create a business, how can I do so where I am most successful? Most successful also means you pay taxes, right? And so when we are ensuring that people come to the United States and they are successful economically, then you see a couple of things happen. Number one, they're stable. And number two, they also give back to their home country. And so when you are giving back to your home country, you're actually limiting the need for future immigration, because you may have your immediate family reconciled in the US or whatever country, but then you're able to still support your in-laws, your extended family in your home country. And you're doing that because that's what you choose to do. That's what you're able to do. But an additional part of that is also the mental health aspect of it. I'm actually not from Virginia, or I am from Virginia, but I was also in Maryland for a very long time. And so moving from Virginia to Maryland and back again, that was a challenge. It's state lines. We are all within the DC, Maryland, and Virginia location, the DMV. It's really within a 30-minute to a 2-hour radius. And that was a challenge. Could you imagine moving hemispheres like we were talking about earlier with the weather, just to understand, okay, so if I come to the United States, in January, it's going to be summertime because you're from that part of the hemisphere, and you come here and you realize, I am not packed for this. I don't have what I need. I am very, very cold. And so there's a lot of things that people don't understand. So, and it's so important to notice that there's different visa categories. It seems like there is also a a challenge or a deficit between state and federal government and what their understanding is. So I kind of wanted to go through the different visa categories in their general context. So we have, of course, immigrant visas, right? And then we have non-immigrant visas, people that do not want to immigrate to the United States. They're just coming for temporary stay. And that would be as a student. There are temporary workers. There are visitors, people that just want to go to, they want to go visit Ken in San Diego, or they want to go to Disney World. They just want to visit temporarily, and they have the intention of leaving, right? But then the immigrant visas, they have a whole different set of requirements to ensure their financial security in the United States. So there is a fiscal responsibility of the petitioner to ensure that when that person comes to the US, that you have the ability to take care of them and they do not require financial support. So when I learned that state governments were accepting a lot of foreign nationals as part of, support within, because that's within their state reserves, they're able to do that. So that was dissonance that I didn't quite understand, because what needs to happen is, why are we not going back to that petitioner whose name is on that dotted line and saying, hey, you said here that you are financially liable for this individual. You are then financially liable for this individual. When I was with state, I do understand that there was a huge liability when it came to medical costs, right? So medical costs of migrants coming to the US, a hospital cannot say to somebody that is like in labor, or if they have another medical condition that is dire, we cannot turn them down, right? So you're definitely going to admit them, but those medical costs are extremely high, and they're not going to be able to pay a $250,000 bill, or pregnancy and labor in the United States that is between $8,000 to $10,000. And if you weren't able to afford a lawyer, you're probably not going to be able to pay that medical bill in full. So those things also started to stack up. And so that was the primary financial consideration when it comes to impact of immigration in the United States. But there's so many ways around this, right? And so right now, when we are seeing that there are 15 million people in the US that do not have status, and President Trump has had the ability to 2.5 million people that they reported that has left the United States. That means, yes, so there's 2.5 million people that left. There's another way, right? We definitely want to ensure that we are handling lawlessness, right? People that do not abide by the regulations and the rules of the United States, that is an issue, right? That's why we had birthright citizenship, because if you are a citizen of that country, then you are required to abide by the laws within that country. And that's why we have birthright citizens. But if we're dealing with people that are committing various crimes, even a DUI, driving under the influence, like those types of things are unacceptable as a migrant. It's really unacceptable, period. But as a migrant in the United States, those are terms of deportation for sure. And that was prior to President Trump. But it's exceeding a little bit. It's not a little bit. It's getting to be a little bit excessive. All right. So what we're noticing is, I'll still get those emails from ICE that are letting us know how many people were actually deported. And we'll say, okay, so we get the emails of saying these individuals committed these particular crimes. It is less than 2% of the entire population that has been deported. What's going on with these individuals? And one thing that is concerning is now it's any migrant that is in the United States, including people that are legal permanent residents. People can hold on to their legal permanent residence for as long as they choose to. That you have to take a test in order to naturalize and become a U.S. citizen. But there are people that are fully dedicated to being legal permanent residents. They pay their taxes. They work. They do everything that they need to do. And now we're saying even that is not safe. And so what is the next step? Are we going to now start talking about people that were not born in the United States and were naturalized? And then now we're going to talk about generations, people that you may have been born in the United States, but if your parents weren't born in the US, then we can go look at you. So at what point do we say we need to go ahead and reform our system? Because you're not going to be able to catch. Is it something that really needs to be caught? Are we going to spend our focus on looking at the past and past mistakes versus creating a system that is sustainable from now until whatever time, right? The Immigration and Nationalities Act has not been reviewed in a very long time, right? There has not been very many changes to the INA. But the truth of the matter is that the INA actually provides quite a bit of allowance for different visa categories, specifically in work. You have entrepreneurs, you have business owners, you have investors, you have skilled workers, you have unskilled workers, you have agricultural workers, you have nurses, you have interns, just to name a few, right? There are so many different visa categories that are available. We should be able to process people through depending on whatever it is that they're doing here in the United States. But what is the main concern now? We're not actually able to process people within a set amount of time. So I'm not sure if you've ever applied to anything, but could you imagine applying for, let's just say, a home loan or to go to college, right? And you have to wait anywhere between 18 months to 3 years before you can get a response. Your life is on hold. What do you do within that time? What does your family do within that time? We need to actually make our system more efficient. And there's no excuse for it. I believe there's no excuse for it because the United States, we have the capacity and we have the means in order to enhance our system. So that brings me over to the Dual Hope Act. The Dual Hope Act is basically requesting or requiring accountability for both the US government as well as migrants. We're requiring that the migrants are able to go ahead and say, here, I am here. I do not currently have status, but under temporary protected status, we're able to say, you have 18 months to get this situation rectified, right? Right now, we have temporary protected status for Burmese individuals. I think that expires at the end of this month. And then Ethiopians, they're going to expire at the end of next month. What happens? The situation in home countries has not enhanced all that much. The situation in Burma has been going on for about 30 years now. And so when they go back to their home country, now that in some locations, if you have that affiliation with the US, your life is in further danger, right? And so going back to that scripture, when it says that they slay the widow and the foreigner, they murder the fatherless, that is essentially what is happening. If we send people back to these countries that are not going to be able to, not wanting to accept them, and it's going to cost them their life, we really need to evaluate why it is that we're making the choices that we are. And is there a better way? If they've been in the United States for X amount of time, it really doesn't even matter the time. They were fleeing their home country to come to the United States, and they were admitted by an officer in the United States. They were admitted. A visa does not guarantee admission to the US. A visa just means that you were reviewed by somebody overseas and they said you're qualified for this visa category. The person needs to then enter the United States and it's reviewed by a different set of rules by the government, right? So the visa process is governed by the Department of State. And then when you enter the United States, entry to the US is governed by the Department of Homeland Security, an agency that was created in 2003, right? And so the sole purpose of the people at the border, Customs and Border Protection, is to ensure that when they enter the United States, that they were allowed to do so. And so once you're admitted by a government agent, now what happens next? Yes, there are some people that did exactly what they needed to do, and they ensured that they did not stay on their temporary visa for the extended amount of time. But there's a lot of circumstances in which somebody can lose their status, right? there could be a death in the family, right? You could have been a minor, and that's what a lot of the dreamers are experiencing right now. They were minors, and so they didn't really have that choice, and they also haven't experienced another country. So what is it that they're supposed to do? Well, they should number one understand that these are temporary statuses, which means you do have to move on to another status at some point. We should not be temporary forever. I do agree with President Trump there, because there needs to be some sort of transition. At some point, we were moving from that temporary status to, are we staying here or are we going? And when that is being said, when I submit my application, it needs to be received by the US government in a way that they're actually receiving it and processing it in a timely manner. And once we see that the processing and is complete, it's done to completion, where it's either a yes or a no, not infinite administrative processing, because that's what we're seeing in a lot of cases, then we might be able to see some order where we're not going back to what happened in Minneapolis, where the woman was shot. Was she in a situation, and this might get some people mad, but was she in a situation when she was obstructing justice? Or was it, or were there other things going on, right? It's almost like, oh man, you're in Australia. I don't know if you guys watch football at all.
Yes, they love their football here.
Okay, all right. So do you have the instant replay?
I don't know, because I'm not into football, to be honest. They have AFL and NRL, and but the very Aussie thing. They love their sport here. So it's not like the American football, but like gridiron and all that. But yeah. But I'm sure they do. I'm sure they would have replays. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we love our football here, right? And it's a play-by-play. And there's nothing wrong with the play-by-play as long as there's that instant replay, right? And you could know what's happening. But when you don't know exactly what's happening, and you're really emotionally charged and you're not quite sure what to do in the moment, things can happen. And unfortunately, in this situation, a life was lost. And regardless of what happened, life is precious. And when lives are lost, we need to evaluate how we are functioning. Is this really the best way forward? Yeah. And yes. So that is one of the major concerns we have here with immigration.
Yeah, a lot of very good points you brought up there. Ken, what are your thoughts?
To put it really plain and simple, like, I really love what Davida is doing. She's bringing order. She's protecting sovereignty. She's not saying that, immigrants can't come to the United States. No. In a nutshell, she's basically saying, let's reform our system so that we do this the right way, so that when immigrants do come in, number one, they're taken care of, but they are legally processed in the right way. So one thing I do want to make very clear to anybody listening is what Davida is not supporting is illegal immigration. That is definitely something that that she is not saying. And I just kind of want to make sure that that's really, really clear, because I think when we talk about the topic of immigration, there can be a lot of mixed messages that go on. Davida is handling the people that are coming here legally, some of the people that are running from their country because their lives are being threatened, because the government in their country is corrupt, and they need to come to a place where they can feel safe and build a future for them and their family. That's okay. Doing that. That's definitely okay. Our country is built off of diversity. Absolutely. And I think that's what makes our country wonderful, is there's a whole bunch of diverse amount of people. Different people have the different gifts and different whatever. But Davida is, coming in here and basically, to put it in a nutshell, like, I'm sorry, Davida, I don't have like all the technical words and all the fancy words that you do. You've been in this for a while, so you've got all those words. So I'm kind of bringing the layman's version of this. But I am 100% in support of what Davida stands for. She's balance, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely. Like Australia is very multicultural, as is England as well, very multicultural. Now we must remember in Australia that everyone, if you're not Indigenous or Aboriginal, original Australian, basically you are not, an original Australian, right? So actually, most countries nowadays are made up of immigrants, right, who've come from, some other country. If you're not an Indigenous islander type person in a lot of places, or like the Native Americans, or if you're not an Indigenous person in Australia, then you're not one of the original people or one of the original custodians of the land. Now, Australia was colonized, actually. Captain Cook, they say, according to history books, is that Captain Cook actually claimed the continent of Australia for Britain in 1770, right? He just basically came in off the boat and said, okay, this now belongs to the British. Whereas there were already, for millions of years, there were Aboriginals in Australia, right? And what happened with a lot of, the stolen generation and, some of the ways that our Indigenous people were treated was absolutely disgusting. And at the same time, there were a lot of positives of the colonization as well. And England actually colonized Australia January 26, 1788. So right now it's January 10, 2026. Here in Australia, January 9 for you guys in America right now. So interestingly, so the last 200 and something years, we'll say about 250 years or so of colonization, we have so many different cultures in Australia, and I love multicultural food. I love going to multicultural festivals. I love experiencing different cultures. But then on the flip side of that, we have things like the Bondi shooting that just happened, right? We just had the Bondi shooting where we had, people from, there's a terrorist attack that happened on Bondi Beach in Sydney during the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah. Around 1,000 people at Hanukkah, and a father and son, Sajid Akram and Naveed Akram, killed 15 people, including a 10-year-old child. And that was over, religious. Well, it was basically, over what's been going on. I would imagine what's going on in Israel right now. That's, you don't just bloody go and shoot people just because you don't agree with something. But, this is religious based or maybe policy based, having a go at Israel because of what's going on in Israel. And I know they did stop a whole lot of aid organizations going in recently in to help people in Gaza, which, there's a lot of people starving over there and some absolute atrocities happening in that region right now, which is absolutely disgusting. And when you look back at history, a lot of people have been starved to death in different countries. It's happened in Turkey. It's happened in Russia. In fact, my history, I have Greek, Turkish, Ukrainian background. I have family that died of starvation because of government, control, because of certain things government did, where, Stalin came in and killed the kulaks and killed a lot of farmers, including my great-grandparents. And of course, when you kill the farmers, you're killing the food. And of course, then you starve your people of food. And of course, this is going to have a ripple effect on all the other countries in the region, right? And what do we do as human beings? We have to, of course, have some compassion for other human beings. And unfortunately, there's a lot of corrupt governments. It's just degrees of corruption, right? In Thailand, you speak against the king and you get killed, right? Yeah. This is what happens. And apparently now to enter the US, if there's anything, you say anything against Trump, apparently that's going to, stand against you as well. So we have a big religious divide that can also happen. And a lot of wars have created over religion. So as we bring more people into our countries from other religions. So, for example, in Australia at the moment, there's 43.9% are Christians in Australia. And we have 38.9% that have no religious affiliation. So some people don't believe in anything. And then all the rest are Buddhist, Islam, Judaism, Jewish or some other, religion. And so this can really divide the different countries and can create a lot of conflict if there isn't, some cultural understanding and acceptance of who have their own beliefs. And unfortunately, unfortunately, with some of these religions, they believe if you kill someone that's not of their religion, that, particularly some particular Muslim religions, that they will go to heaven and have a whole lot of virgins, etc. So, this is apparently in the Quran. It's a very interesting world we're living in right now, where we have such a melting pot of people across the world. I think anywhere you go in the world, just about, you're going to find lots of different cultures, and then interbreeding of different cultures as well. So it's really become quite a melting pot. But I do agree with you. I think it needs to be done properly. I think there needs to be certain rules around it. Illegal migrants is not the way to go. Turning up on a boat is not the way to go. A lot of people drown as well. The boat people, a lot of people end up drowning in the ocean, attempting to illegally escape the country and look for somewhere to move to, and plus also the thing about, for example, a lot of Muslim families, as I say, I'm just saying Muslims because I know a bit about it, they have a lot of children, and a lot of these people are on welfare, right? And so that really drains the government funds, the taxpayer money, to pay for all the children, because the government in Australia is very generous, particularly the Labor government, very generous in paying lots of money to people who have lots of children. And at the same time, Australia was built on migrants, a lot of migrant work, because migrants tend to work their butt off as well. You have those that really do work their butt off and work really hard and actually help build countries as well. So it's a very interesting thing. And for those joining, I'd love to know your thoughts on this, on immigration. What are your thoughts on immigration? Good, bad? How should it be done moving forward? As you said, Davida, what's the best way to move forward to ensure that it is done in an orderly fashion?
And it's really interesting hearing you speak about it, like a completely different perspective, a different country, seeing similar issues, and even similar verbiage that I've heard from, Americans here in the US. It seems like, when put a whole bunch of kids in a playground, and can they play together? And they come from different backgrounds, different languages, different cultures, different belief systems. Can we play together? Will there be pushing and shoving? Will I say, no, this is my swing and you can't have a turn? Like, how are we treating our migrants? How are we teaching our children to really, is it integration, or is it, being nice to your neighbor at this point? And then really understanding what is going on here, because one of the first places that I served was in Yemen, right? And I was a child here. I was a dependent. But I, helped out the American embassy. My dad was, he was the diplomat at the time, of course, still as a dependent. But in Yemen, one of the things is I absolutely love their culture. I absolutely love their culture, their dedication to family, I absolutely love their culture, and I love their food and their architecture and their design, and their innovative. And, one thing about Western, because I was over in Yemen and also served over in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, and the Westernization in the UAE, still very beautiful, amazing scents and smells and foods and all of that goodness. But it's also very Westernized. It's very different. One thing I loved about Yemen, it was very much grounded in their culture, and you could tell the difference, right? So just because people come to the United States or any country and they hold on to their culture because they see that as, whether they see that as, ethics, whether or not what they are wearing, how they show up, and how are they being treated? How are they being received? So I don't know, maybe this stems into a bigger issue of how do we perceive other people? And, that goes into, I guess, the third part of the Lighthouse immigration strategy when we're talking about mental health. And we're able to really dig deep into, when somebody says something to you, how do you perceive it? Are you perceiving it as a jab? Or are they just acknowledging a portion of your culture, acknowledging a portion of your experiences? So I think, that this might actually go into, if we're noticing a lot of violence, I don't believe that we actually have those big issues where it's somebody, other than if, those terrorist attacks, like, something on a larger scale. But we haven't really experienced that in the United States. It's usually all those one-off instances. And even the shooting in Minnesota on Wednesday, that was between an ICE officer and the woman that died was an American citizen, and so it wasn't even any kind of cultural challenges there. It was, and I don't even want to say necessarily it was a misunderstanding. It seems like Renee, she was in her mind and thought process of what she thought was best. And then the ICE officer, maybe he thought he did what he thought was best. But clearly somebody died. So just because you thought something was best, was it really the best action to take? And just being able to see accountability. Of course, Renee doesn't have the ability to demonstrate accountability because she's not here anymore. But if we were able to see some accountability, I know that in leadership, when, working with the State Department, one of the things that I really appreciated, we're going to go really deep into history here, with, at the time, Secretary Hillary Clinton, right, was that during Benghazi, she took that responsibility. She taught me a lot in that moment, that as a leader, you accept responsibility and then you make the changes. Because although you may have given that order based off of the information that was available at the time, you still gave that order. And because you gave that order in the way that it was received, it caused these issues. And so what orders are we giving, right? Was it perceived wrong? Maybe you gave an order and it wasn't received in the way that it was intended for. Maybe, in securing the United States from a hole in our economy, right? Because there is costs to individuals here in the US. Maybe in order to pacify that hole, now it's causing some violence and other issues. So rather than let's go in a little bit deeper, we need to find that better response. We need to really take a breath and see what is the best response and go about it. We need to find something that's good for the citizens of the United States, right? We need to look for something that is in the economic best interests of the United States. And also we need to care about the condition of our foreigners because they're here and they trusted us with their lives and with their families. And if you enter the United States on a boat or whatever means, that means you were desperate to come here. What caused that desperation? Do we not have compassion anymore? And you can only have compassion if you have the capacity for it. But if we don't have capacity, then there is no need for compassion, which is one of the things I love about the United States, because we have capacity. We are a country that even if we don't have capacity, we're going to grow it. We're going to build it. We're going to find it. We're going to innovate it. And that's what I absolutely love about the US. We can do that. So why does it make this situation any different? Why can't we look at it just a little bit differently? We understand that there is an issue. We understand that it has not been actively acted on. And this is what I actually think that President Donald Trump is an amazing individual to be able to rectify change with immigration. However, I do not believe that he has been given the right information in order to make the changes that would actually rectify immigration in the US. You might put a Band-Aid on certain areas of this huge wound, but this is not it's not going to fix everything. We really need to hold accountability. That is the only way that we are able to perceive change within ourselves, even in our finances, in our households. If we're not saying, what, maybe I am the link that is causing these issues, family, job, children, whatever it is, sometimes we got to look in ourselves. And that's what I'm asking the US government to do, to be able to say, hey, you know what, in immigration, there's some things that we can do a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And one of those things is making sure our systems are flowing. If our systems are flowing and our fraud prevention teams are doing what they need to do, and we are ensuring that people are being able to flow, and we have a process that works, then it makes sense to have more crucial consequences. But if we don't have a process that works and people's lives are on hold for years, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yes. Yes. And we do get very significant also about all these things, because when you look at the universe and look at the earth is very small compared to the universe, right? And we are one world. We are one world in a massive planet, right? And we've got all these divisions that happen all around the world, right? If we just step out of the world for a moment and go, okay, let's just, put someone on Jupiter, right? Now, interestingly, just looking at some stats here, did you know that the Earth is 8,000 miles in diameter, which we think, wow, that's huge. It'll take 45 hours to travel around its circumference, 45 hours to travel right around the whole Earth, right? But Jupiter, did you know it's the largest planet in our solar system, and it's 88,000 miles wide. And then the sun is 865,000 miles in diameter. So at this size, it can fit 1.3 million Earths inside the sun. 1.3 million Earths inside the sun, right? And here we are in our little world, saying, no, you can come in, you can't come in. We've got these rules here, you've got those rules there. What is the right way to go here? I think from human being to human being, at the end of the day, none of it matters anyway. Right? None of us are going to make it out alive off this planet, right? We're going to enter another dimension, or we're going to, our soul will go somewhere, and everyone has different beliefs around where our soul is going to go, right? But, there's a lot more than meets the eye, and we do get very significant in our human existence around, what is right and what is wrong, and how things should be done, which is very, very interesting, very interesting. I think definitely some more compassion for our fellow human beings who are doing it tough, definitely, I think is very important. And I think there also needs to be certain boundaries as far as, what we do accept and what we don't accept at the same time. So it's a bit of a tricky situation. And I do think, we can't control the things of the past. Yes, let's move forward. Let's move forward in a way that's going to be the best result for everybody involved. And ideally, a bit less corruption in government would be brilliant, but I don't know that will ever happen. So I don't have faith, because I think since the beginning of time there's been corruption in government, and there probably will be the end of time. So, that's just how it is. So, depending on which way we look at the situation depends on our viewpoint of the situation. Of course, there'll be people who want to see their family, want to be with their family, who maybe, can't come into the country for whatever reason, or, people who are fleeing war zone areas where there is no food, there's no shelter, and this is a humanitarian crisis situation. So who's going to pick up the slack, and who's going to help these people in crisis situations? What is the right way to go about it?
Right. Some statistics for you, actually, since we're talking about that. Really interesting. So this is for Virginia. I'm sorry, not Virginia, for January. All right. So January 2026, we are currently processing. Let's give it the Philippines. No, we could say Mexico. So for Mexico right now, we are processing people that are siblings of U.S. citizens that filed in 2001.
Wow.
The petition was filed in 2001. All right. So with the Philippines, they filed in 2006. And they have been waiting this entire time. The petition was filed, and we're waiting for visa numbers to become available. Let's just see. A spouse of a...
I'll just interrupt for a second. Is that interesting? Because 9/11 happened, and then suddenly the war on terror happened just like that. Gee, that didn't take 20 years for the war on terror to happen, did it? But with things like this, it takes, 2001. That is 24 years.
24 years of waiting. Yes.
Wow.
That's people, yeah. And so what are they doing? They're working. If they're waiting for a visa number in their home country, they're working. There are other ways to reunite this family, right? There's the work that you're doing over there. Let's just say there's a lot of innovators in many third world countries, like in the Philippines, in Mexico. There's a lot of innovators, whatever that is, right? And so you could take that innovation, bring it to the United States, and give us a little bit more commerce, and there's multiple ways to do it. But if you don't have that information, then you're going to look at that number and say, oh my goodness, 25 years of waiting? I don't think I want to do that. All right, everybody, let's go to Disney World. And that's kind of how that conversation comes to be. But there are other ways. There are other ways to do this legally. And we just need to do better at, getting that information out there and saying, hey, you can't, and Ken and I talked about this recently about sovereignty, right? We can't have sovereignty without borders. So borders are absolutely essential. Borders and boundaries, right? And so we definitely have those gates. We definitely have those things that are those limits. And we need to ensure that, hey, we need you to abide by our limits and our regulations, because they're there to hopefully protect the citizens of that nation, of that sovereign country. So yeah, absolutely. We need to do better, but there's so many facets of it. It seems like when you're looking at this as perspective, there's so many different ways to see it.
Sure. And then there's borders and boundaries in our own life that a lot of people are challenged with as well, right? Is actually setting some strong boundaries for yourself, for your own little container, like whether it's your house or your car or we all have our own individual boundaries, as well as the government boundaries, as well as geographical boundaries.
Right.
And then it's a fascinating. We could do a whole Total Truth show on the truth about boundaries. I think that would actually be
that would be fun. Yeah, absolutely. Like, could you imagine having somebody come into your house that you may have invited to say, "Hey, come over, have Thanksgiving dinner with me," right?
Yeah.
And they never left.
Oh my God.
Ever. They started, going in your refrigerator, eating your food, sleeping in your kids' beds. Like, okay, boundaries, right? But could you also imagine if you were, you lost your home to a fire or something, right? A fire, hurricane, tsunami. Floods. And then you're going, floods. And you're going to somebody's house to say, please, I need to feed my child. I have a 2-year-old. I need some clothes for her. I need some play. And they just looked at you through the window and blinked. Like, so it goes both ways.
It's a big one. Isn't it? Really.
It does. And with that, so I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper on kind of what we're talking about here. And so it's a question that I have pulled up here. What roles should accountability play in a humane immigration system?
Okay, so accountability. And that goes, so starting with the government, we're going to start top down, because I believe the government has the most authority in this situation. So the one that has the most authority should take most of the accountability, right? So of course, the U.S. government, we are looking at different forms of accountability. We want to be accountable to our citizens. We want to be accountable to our foreigners, but in a timely manner, right? Time is huge. If we're concerned about someone being a threat to national security, and we're concerned about that person being a threat for 3+ years, there's a time when we say, you know what, we cannot ensure the security for whatever reasons, right? And then that's the decision. The answer is no. We should be comfortable with the answer being no, not just an ongoing process. But then, if new information becomes available or whatever that situation is, then you can go ahead and reapply, because that's essentially what visas are and what visas are able to do. So really the main concern would be time period. And then also that we're able to communicate, state and federal, that they're not kind of using, okay, so if you tell the federal government, you tell this one government entity, officer, agency, that I have financial support through this petitioner, through this job, through this whatever that is, and then you go to another local government, state government, say, I don't actually have this information, or you forget to mention it and nobody asks you for it, then you go ahead and just receive support that takes away from taxpayers. You could also be a taxpayer as a foreigner and then fall on hard times. That happens as well, right? So there just accountability through. We need to understand the process, right? And if we want to get out of immigration processing, then yes, a naturalization exam leading to naturalization and citizenship would be that end goal there. When we're talking about migrants, when you are a guest in someone else's house, you know, in my house, we might not take off our shoes. We go to somebody else's house and they say, please remove your shoes at the door. I'll go ahead and I'll do that. Right. And so as long as we're understanding, all right, so I need to abide by these laws, I need to abide by these regulations, then we do that. Now, even in my own home, my children are not guests in my home. They live here, but there's still rules that they have to abide by. You know, there's still boundaries and regulations that they need to abide by, and there are consequences if they don't. Kids are great, but yeah, there would be consequences if they didn't. So it goes both ways.
Yes, so true. And, you know, structure creates freedom. It's one of my favorite sayings. Structure creates freedom. And imagine a world where there's no boundaries. Like, it would be chaos, right? So, yeah, it's absolutely crucial to have boundaries and to have rules, and ideally rules that, you know, that consider the best outcomes for everybody, and also not undermining your own values as well. So, you know, it's not okay to just go shooting willy-nilly. Like what happened in Bondi was absolute atrocity. You know, it was horrific that 15 people lost their lives because, you know, 2 people were angry with the Jews and decided to just shoot a whole lot of them when they're at a public festival. Just shoot random civilians, you know, random people. I mean, that is not okay. You know, that you don't come into someone's country and start shooting people just because you're of a different religion, no matter what country you're in. You know, but, you know, what do you say if these people come into your country and go, well, you're not meant to shoot anyone when you come in here, but, you know, they'll have their own ideas. What do you do? How do you make sure that people follow the rules?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what happened during this conversation was actually very healthy, because we're able to say, all right, so the immigration concern is really a concern of boundaries, right? And how are we navigating those boundaries? And we all have boundaries, so we can relate to that. But we also understand that these boundaries that we're talking about, it impacts everything. It impacts, you know, we have boundaries for ourselves, we have boundaries for our homes, for our children, but we also have communities. We have law enforcement, right? We have, in the United States, we have local, state, federal law that each of them have boundaries. We have, it impacts our economy one way or another. There's ways that we can shift it so it positively impacts the United States. One of the programs that we held last year, and you know, it continues into this year, is for agricultural workers. So if you didn't have status, then, and you want to work in the United States, you want to, and we have lots of farms and we want to do more crops and commerce within the United States and not have so many imports, right? So then we can grow more produce in the United States, and we have agricultural workers. Now that is a gap that we're able to fill if we're able to utilize our resources well. And yes, people are resources. We can use people's skills as resources. So rather than saying getting rid of 15 million people, we could always switch it and say, all right, so we have 15 million individuals in the United States that have the ability to funnel into different categories in order to enhance the economy, to enhance commerce. And, you know, that would just be a great way to build a country. That's all I'm saying.
Now, I have another question for you. You've talked about the lighthouse strategy a few times in our conversation here. I kind of want to get a little bit more specificity out of it. Try saying that word 10 times over again. You're gonna get like all kinds of tongue-tied. Okay, so how does the lighthouse strategy balance enforcement, legal pathways, and compassion?
Absolutely. So the lighthouse immigration strategy has 3 components to it. The first component is, of course, making sure legally they're structured right, just like a business, right? You want to make sure your business is legally structured right. When you're in the United States, you want to make sure your status is legally structured correctly. All right, so that's the first step. The second part is to make sure you're economically efficient and self-sufficient in the United States, whether or not you are creating a business, whether or not you're investing, whether or not you are employed, whatever that means is, we want to ensure that your family, your household is economically self-sufficient. And yes, that does mean that there are taxes that are being paid, right? And then the third portion of that would be mental health. We want to ensure the mental health and wellness of families here in the US, because you're right, there is a lot of diversity. There's a lot of ways of perceiving different things. Different hand signals mean different things in different countries, right? And so, in some countries, all you're doing is showing off your muscles. In other countries, they're going to perceive that in a very different way. And so, yes.
I hate to know what, because that can go in all kinds of different directions. Wow.
Yes, exactly. So it's just like being able to perceive things and then understand what that really means. And that actually goes into a whole nother conversation of blueprint to heal and biblical principles that guarantee healing. Leaving territorial principalities that kind of govern bloodlines and things of that nature, but essentially ensuring mental wellness and family structure, right? Those go hand in hand. Economic self-sufficiency, and then ensuring that your legal status is structured correctly.
Yeah, there's some very valid points there. Yeah, I think this is a very interesting discussion, immigration, and there's always going to be pros and there's always going to be cons with everything. It's like the yin yang of life. So in Australia, there's a lot of people saying, we haven't got enough homes here even for the locals, yet alone we bring all these migrants in, and we've got a massive homelessness situation in Australia, and they're blaming the migrants, saying that they're taking all the houses or they're taking all the jobs, and on the flip side, well, a lot of migrants do work their butts off and actually do create businesses as well, and they actually employ people through those businesses, and a lot of them could be developers, and they could come in with a lot of money and actually create homes for the locals as well. So there's always two sides to every story. It's all a matter of, okay, which perspective are you looking at? There's always light where there's dark and dark where there's light, and what is going to work best for I guess the boundaries, the rules of that country, and being open to actually, changing some of these rules if they're not working, changing the way that we've been doing things in the past. Look at the past and look what's worked, what hasn't worked, what can we implement now moving forward that's going to work best in this current economy or current world climate even, right? And coming into uncertain times. There's a lot of countries have nuclear bombs. I mean, it could all be over in a flash if some of these countries let off some nuclear bombs. None of us will be here. And maybe that'll be a good thing for the planet because, humans have done a great job at destroying the planet. However, the earth, nature will, it'll keep going. The trees will keep growing and, we're doing a great job of destroying ourselves and the planet. And so I'm a big advocate for let's be respectful also of our environment while we're doing all this as well, of our environment, and make time to connect, with nature, with the animals, and realize what a beautiful world it is, and have respect for all beings, not just other human beings, actually have respect for all beings on the planet, because I think we're all here for a reason, and we're all sharing this human existence together. So let's look for ways we can do it more harmoniously, more peacefully, and consider other human beings, not just where they're from or what their religious status is or what their cultural beliefs are or what kind of food they eat. Let's look at how we can learn from each other. How can we live a more harmonious, peaceful existence together? Because whether we like it or not, we're all in the one world together anyway, and what is in one part of the world is going to impact another part of the world.
Absolutely.
So let's do our best to make our world the best we can in our small world, in our intimate world, and then have that ripple effect of change around the world. And they say hurt people, and heal people, heal people. So also it's very important, whether you're migrating, not migrating, whether you're, in this immigration loop, is actually to look at how can you have the most peaceful existence that you can on the planet? How can you find ways to love yourself more, to love every single part of yourself, so that you don't go out in the community with so much hate and anger that is reflected from you hating and being angry with yourself. Right? Yeah. If you're more peaceful with yourself, you're more loving with yourself, then that ripple effect will flow out as well. And of course, boundaries are important, having your own boundaries for your own self-love as well. So really being mindful of how are you doing life? Are you having a great existence of life? Because there's a lot in the world we cannot control. There's heaps in the world we cannot control. So how are you going to live the most empowered, beautiful existence you can for yourself on the planet, considering a third of people die by the age of 65? And 90% of people die with regret. So considering those kind of statistics, right. 1 in 3 of us potentially will be dead by 65, and the years fly by. The older you get, the years fly by. And how are you choosing to do life? Are you choosing to fret and worry about the immigration policies, or, are you worrying about what someone else is doing or not doing to you? As I say, everything happens for you, not to you, right? Where are you putting your life force, your energy? What are you focusing on? What you focus on will grow. And my intention for everyone in my life is to live your best life possible. What does that look like for you, knowing there's so much in the world you cannot control? And also at the same time being a stand for something. If you see some injustices in the world, or you see something that is crazy, like waiting 25 years to find out about, migrating to a country. I mean, that is just outrageous. That's like a third of someone's life that they're still waiting to find whether they can go to another country. That is absolute insanity, and, making sure that the same rules for everybody concerned as well, the same rules. Like, so for example, when all the jab mandates came in Australia, there are a lot of politicians that they were exempt from getting the jab, but everyone else had to take it because it was safe and effective. But the politicians, they didn't have to take it, right? So we need to make sure
rules for thee, rules for me. That's what we saw during that time. Rules for thee, rules for me. My gosh. All right.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely do have a call to action, though, for people that may be listening that may be impacted by immigration in the United States. And I am talking about American citizens that care about this issue. Yes. So American citizens, legal permanent residents, because you're coming down that line as well. People that have temporary status, people that do not have status. And for the individual, especially for the individuals that are on that list that is growing. I think 20 more countries were added to the ban list. And so that list that is growing, if you're from one of those countries or you hold one of those migrant status, contact us, get in contact with us on immigrationintegrates.com. We are looking to ensure that you have the information that you need to make the right decisions for you and your family. Sometimes you'll choose to go back to your home country. Sometimes you'll choose to find a better way, a quicker way than waiting for 25 years in order to migrate to the United States. And for U.S. citizens, if you also believe that we could do a little bit better when it comes to immigration by holding ourselves accountable, holding our government accountable, and also for the migrants, holding them accountable, then I encourage you to sign our Dual Hope Act campaign so that we can go ahead and get it passed through legislation. We need to see some changes. And really, if an executive order, it is just a swipe of a pen and will ensure that within 18 months, our immigration problem would then be resolved. So
amazing. If you don't stand for something, you fall for anything, my friends. So there you go. All those links there. I'd imagine they're all in here, are they? linktree/KAN.CENTER, can.center. Okay, linktree/can.center. So find all those links there. Connect with Davida in there. Anything else you want to share on the topic of immigration before we go to your quote for the day, Davida?
Well, actually, my quote for the day is one of the last things I do want to share. And that is, even before I started this organization, I've noticed that it works when immigration integrates. And that's why the actual website is Immigration Integrates, because it works when immigration integrates.
Beautiful. Love that, Davida. Wow, so many words of wisdom there. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us. And Ken, now over to you. How can people connect with you?
People can connect with me by going to www.masteryweightloss.com/connect. And where is the link? You're running behind, Aldwyn. Come on, there we go. There it is, you guys. So really, really, really briefly. So I've lost 62.5 pounds and I've kept it off for 7+ years now without a diet and having that be sustainable. Right now, I'm giving away my 3 secrets to not only help you lose weight, to feel energized and to get healthy without starving or dieting. In just 3 one-on-one sessions with me in my mini educational boot camp series, I literally help people to break free from that system and help them to fuel their body God's way so they can finally break free and keep the weight off for life, like I've been able to do sustainably. So if you'd like to find out more about that boot camp, as well as connect with me, there's different ways to connect with me on that page. I just updated the page, everything else. So there are 4 links on that page. One is to get into my boot camp. The second one is to connect with me on Facebook. There's another one in there to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Lastly, there's one in there to book a free strategy call with me so we can unpack what your next steps look like moving forward. That is how you can connect with me. My quotes. Ooh, Aldwyn, I hope I'm not going to dub you over on this one, because I did find one by John F. Kennedy. And I remember in the beginning, you were just like, ooh, John F. Kennedy. So I am going to quote from 2 then. So just in case.
Sure.
John F. Kennedy's quote is, "Everywhere migrants have enriched and strengthened the fabric of American life." Dwight Eisenhower says, "America is best described by one word: diversity."
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Ken. Wonderful. And for those who want to connect with me, you can go along here to linktree/Aldwyn. That's linktr.ee/Aldwyn. If you want to be seen, heard, and known for the amazing person that you are, if you want to build your brand, your expertise, then reach out. My background is traditional media, and I do a lot in the online media space now. We have a mass media mastery program. I work with people, mainly conscious entrepreneurs, my market, speakers, authors, coaches, the aware ones, the awake ones, not the woke ones, the aware ones and the awake ones, the ones that I like to work with. So reach out there. You can find all my links there. That's my YouTube channel as well. You'll see that picture there, Aldwyn Altuney, Media Queen TV. You'll see on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, we've just had 301,000 views of YouTube, and that's even with some shadow banning of some of my content, interestingly. So thank you to everyone who supported my YouTube channel over the years. And you'll see all our previous shows, all the previous Total Truth shows, Media Queen TV shows, Media Mavens shows, etc., etc. It's all there. Let's stay connected. We put a lot of inspiring content out as well. And we have the Global Good News Challenge, which is free for you to participate in every month. It's free marketing. You will feel fantastic when you share gratitude. And also the people in your life will feel amazing when they share gratitude. And that is a great way to help decrease depression and suicide rates and lift the general energy across the planet. So check out the Global Good News Challenge Facebook page, and in all those links you'll find everything there and some free media resources as well. If you want to get on TV, some free tips there on how to get on TV and some other great stuff. So hop along there, and I have some quotes for you here as well. Now, the John F. Kennedy one that I mentioned earlier is, he said, "We are a nation of immigrants and we must uphold that tradition." That's what John F. Kennedy said back in the day.
Okay, cool. So I didn't steal your quote. Okay, awesome.
No, but there's another quote actually that I really love, and this is from, it's unknown who this comes from, but "We are all immigrants in this world trying to find our place." Isn't that a great one? We're all immigrants in this world trying to find our place. And another one I love too, by Lao Tzu: "Every great journey begins with a single step." Every great journey begins with a single step. I want to thank our amazing live viewers here on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We've had Amrutha Raj from Bangalore, India. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you there, Amrutha. And I must say, I love Indian food and I love Indian clothing and jewelry as well. So thank you for joining us all the way from Bangalore, India. And we have Charles Caldwell, who is an Aussie guy in Hong Kong. There you go. And Hong Kong, of course, is great for shopping. You know, see, every country has something amazing, right? I'm very grateful for all of the multicultural restaurants we have in Australia. I love experiencing food from different cultures. So very grateful for that part of multiculturalism there. So welcome, Charles. Thanks for joining us. And for those who are watching live, let us know. Are you live with us right now? Pop live in the chat. Are you watching the replay? Let us know, replay in the chat. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please share the love. Let us know what you've got out of the show. Let us know your gold nuggets in the comments. Make sure you like our Total Truth Show page or check us out on Spotify. Give us a review. We'd love a review on Spotify too of our show. That would be wonderful. Any final comments, Davida or Ken?
You're muted.
Can't hear you there, Davida. I can see your mouth. Oh, there we are.
All right, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. It just when like you mentioned earlier, if you stand for something or you stand for nothing at all. And let's go ahead and let's make a stance. We can do better. Let's actually make America great again.
Amen.
Yes, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So yes, definitely make a stand. Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Davida. Ken, final words?
I really don't have any final words. Just that I definitely think that immigration, there definitely needs to be some changes. There definitely are some major problems, especially with some of the stats that Davida shared tonight, that I was just like, holy cow, people are waiting 20 years? What the heck? Like,
yeah.
That's just crazy. But even more than that, you know, we do have a lot of illegals in our country, and that needs to be fixed. I have no problem with immigrants coming in our country, rightfully, lawfully, and finding a place to build their family, their dream, getting a good job, different things like that. I have absolutely no problem with that. In fact, I love diversity of people. What I do have a problem with is illegal immigration. That's just not acceptable. So just to be further clear on that. So Davida, thank you so much for the work you're doing. Thank you for all the experience you've had. Holy cow, your credentials are absolutely stellar. I remember when I first interviewed you on my my little platform, I was absolutely taken back by your credentials and how, wow, you're a rare find. And so kudos to you for all the good work that you're doing. I really, really appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I appreciate being on this live right now and the opportunity to tell the truth about immigration.
Thank you, Davida. Thank you so much. And I think with all this as well, I have no problem with the multicultural world at all. I just think if you are going to enter somebody else's country, please be respectful of the local cultures and traditions in those countries. And please do it legally and lawfully as well. You know, have some respect for the government, even though some of them, you know, probably don't really deserve the respect. But, you know, it's still the government, right? The people have voted them in general. And, you know, we have to be mindful of that you're entering somebody else's country, somebody else's homeland, and you know, just because they're different to your homeland doesn't mean that it's any better or any worse. You know, there's some beautiful things that we can all bring to each other, right? We can all teach each other, we can all learn from each other, no matter what cultural background, no matter what religious background, no matter what your thoughts or beliefs or whatever you believe to be true, right? Let's moving into 2026 now, let's be more kind, more compassionate to ourselves and to others, and particularly if they were birthed in another country to you or they're from a different culture. You know, how about, you know, learning more about those cultures? Because a lot of, you know, when I grew up in Sydney, there was a lot of racism, and it was often that people just didn't understand people from other countries. That's why there was racism. But once you have an understanding, once you have a learning, and you see how amazing these people are from other countries, there's a lot that we can learn from the wisdom right across the world. So here's to more kindness, compassion, more love, more peace in the world. Sending you all much love for an amazing 2026. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Davida. Thank you, Ken. We'll see you again on Total Truth Show very soon. Much love. See you then. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Yes.